You are the type of owner who actually shows up. You paid for the puppy classes, you practiced the homework, you clapped at graduation. And yet 6 months later, your dog blows past every command the moment something interesting hits the air. Here is what nobody in that classroom told you: the training was never really about your dog's world. It was built around yours. And that gap, that fundamental mismatch between species, is exactly why obedience collapses when it matters most. This video is for the owner who did everything right and still feels like something is missing. You are not failing your dog. The system handed to you was incomplete from the start. Before we can fix the training, we have to understand the deeper problem. And the deeper problem starts with something most trainers never bring up in a single class session: the radical difference between how you experience the world and how your dog does. Let us start with a number that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. You have roughly 5 to 6 million olfactory receptors in your nose. That sounds like a lot until you realize your dog has somewhere around 300 million. That is not a small upgrade. That is a completely different operating system. Scientists estimate that a dog's sense of smell is somewhere between 10,000 and 100,000 times more sensitive than yours. To put that in terms you can feel: if you can detect a teaspoon of sugar dissolved in your morning coffee, your dog can detect that same teaspoon dissolved in 1 million gallons of water. And yet on every single walk we ask them to ignore it. We focus on pace. We focus on heel position. We focus on whether they are sitting politely at the curb. We are, essentially, dragging a creature with a supercomputer nose through a library and telling it to stop reading. Here is the analogy that will change how you see every walk you take from this point forward. Imagine you sit down with a book you have been waiting weeks to read. The story is finally getting good. The tension is building. You are completely absorbed. And then someone walks over and turns off the lights. Not to hurt you. Not out of cruelty. They just have somewhere to be and they need you to keep moving. That is what happens when you pull your dog away from a scent mid-investigation. It is not stubbornness. It is not dominance. It is the neurological equivalent of having a rich, layered story cut off at the most compelling sentence. The information was not finished. The picture was not complete. And your dog, wired by millions of years of evolution to gather and process environmental data through smell, is left with an incomplete read of the world around them. This matters beyond just the walk itself. This matters for training. When puppy classes focus on sits, downs, stays, and spins for a graduation photo, they are teaching your dog to perform in a low-distraction environment with your full attention on them and their full attention on you. That is not the real world. The real world smells like 3 dogs who passed this corner an hour ago, a discarded food wrapper under the bench, a child who ran through here with a popsicle, and something dead approximately 40 feet into the bushes. Your dog knows all of that before you have even clipped the leash. So when you step onto that busy street and your trained, certified, graduated puppy suddenly acts like they have never heard the word sit in their life, it is not a betrayal. It is a completely predictable outcome of training that never accounted for the olfactory world your dog actually lives in. Here is what a communication breakdown really looks like in practice. You are moving at human pace, which averages around 3 miles per hour on a casual walk. Your dog's nose is processing information at a rate that has no human equivalent, picking up layered chemical signals that tell them who was here, how long ago, what emotional state that individual was in, whether they were healthy or stressed, and in some cases what they ate. Each sniff is not just a sniff. It is a paragraph. Sometimes it is an entire chapter. When you set the pace and your dog has to match it, you are not walking together. You are dragging your dog through a book at 10 times the speed they need to read it. The result is a dog that is perpetually understimulated cognitively despite being physically tired, perpetually overstimulated by incomplete inputs, and perpetually in a state of low-grade frustration that expresses itself as pulling, distraction, reactivity, and selective deafness to commands. That selective deafness is the part that drives owners crazy, and it is the part that puppy classes almost never address directly. Impulse control is not just about leaving food on the ground or waiting at a door. Real impulse control, the kind that holds up under real-world pressure, is built by teaching your dog that engaging with the environment on a timed, negotiated basis is something you support rather than something you fight. The dog who is allowed to sniff for 30 seconds before moving is not the dog who falls apart at distractions. That dog has learned that the information is accessible, that you are not the enemy of their processing, and that checking in with you is worth doing because you are a fair partner rather than an obstacle. The puppy class graduation photo does not show you any of that. It shows a dog in a sit with a mortarboard graphic overlay, and it makes you feel like the work is done. The work is not done. The work has barely started. Building a dog that functions in the real world means building a dog who can shift between processing their environment and engaging with you, not one who is suppressed into compliance under controlled conditions and then released into sensory chaos with no tools. It means understanding that a dog pulling toward a fire hydrant is not a discipline problem. It is a communication problem. And the communication broke down long before that moment on the street. It broke down when we stopped asking what the walk is actually for. For you, the walk might be exercise, fresh air, a mental reset before work. All of that is valid. But for your dog, the walk is the primary means of reading the world. It is news, social information, environmental data, and mental stimulation all compressed into 20 minutes of pavement. When you prioritize your pace over their processing, you are not just interrupting a sniff. You are cutting off their access to one of the only forms of genuine enrichment available to them in a domesticated life. And when a dog is chronically under-enriched in the way that actually matters to them, their behavior does not improve with more repetitions of sit and stay. It gets harder. The frustration builds. The reactivity increases. The training that seemed to work in the classroom starts to feel pointless in the street. That is not your failure. That is the predictable result of a system that was designed around human convenience, human timelines, and human metrics of success, with the dog's actual sensory reality treated as an inconvenience to be managed rather than a foundation to be understood. The moment you start seeing walks from inside your dog's nose instead of from behind your eyes, everything changes. Not just the walks, the training, the relationship, the way your dog looks at you when you stop, crouch down, and let them finish reading what the world wrote on that patch of ground. If this reframed the way you see your dog's behavior even slightly, the next step is to take it out on your next walk. Not a training session. Just a walk where you let your dog lead the pace for 5 minutes and notice what changes. Then come back and tell me what you saw. And if you know an owner who is in the middle of puppy classes right now, share this with them before that gap gets wider. Thanks for watching. If you loved this video, scan the QR code on the screen right now to subscribe and join the Possum Life family. Give your dog a belly rub for us, and we will see you in the next video.